Do you know that the electrical and electronics products, the E&E, has always been Malaysia's largest export, at least for the past 20 years? How large? According to the latest statistic, it accounts for 40% of the total export. That is quite impressive, especially when you look at our previous financial budgets. We almost never emphasized the E&E sector, so it is largely driven by the private sector, without much push from the government. Investing in a developing country like Malaysia, that push from the government can make all the difference. It's like flying with the wind. Now what if I tell you the government decided to give a serious push to the E&E sector? Of course, I'm talking about the new Industrial Master Plan 2030. We will just call it NIMP here, unveiled on 1st of September. Will this be a golden opportunity? If you're a cynic like we all tend to become after spending too much time in the stock market, you probably won't spend too much attention to the government plan. After our Wawasan 2020, our previous Industrial Master Plan, our Economic Transformation Program, all don't seem to be going anywhere. So why should we pay attention to this NIMP now? Hi everyone, I'm Sept from the Modern Reminder. Welcome to the Market Highlight series. In this series, I will update the interesting event that happened recently and see how we can adjust our portfolio according to this event. Let us have a general view of the E&E sector. Here's a simple illustration of the value chain in the semicon industry. First, we have the chips designer, chips developer. Most of the international big names belong to this category, like your Intel, your ARM, your Nvidia, Qualcomm, Broadcom. And then after the chips are designed and developed, someone needs to fabricate them. So now we have the chips fabricator, like the famous TSMC, and Intel, Samsung, they are also doing the fabricating work. Fabricating is manufacturing work, but it is very technology demanding. After the chips are fabricated, someone needs to do the assembly and testing. So now we have the two main categories, the OSAT, which does the assembly and testing work, and also the equipment players. Sometimes the researchers call them ATE, and then sometimes they call it SPE. Basically, they mean the same thing. They are the company that manufacture the equipment to test the chips. You would also see EMS in some research report. EMS stands for Electronic Manufacturing Services. They don't necessarily have anything to do with the semicon industry. They are the manufacturing contractor that provide a wide range of services to the electronic industry, like designing, engineering, manufacturing, testing. So EMS is an umbrella term. There are a wide range of services. There are different kind of company under the EMS category. Generally, OSAT profit margin is lower than the equipment makers. And for the EMS, it's hard to tell because they provide a wide range of service. That depends on what kind of service they are providing, what kind of work they are doing. But anyway, most of the Malaysian listed companies fall under these three categories. They belong to the lower part of the value chain. If you want more information about the distinction of the three industries and maybe some Malaysian listed company as examples, you can request through the Google form below. We want to move up the value chain. We don't want to stay under these three industries forever. But again, we have been saying this for the past 20 years. So why should we now take this NIMP seriously? There are three reasons. First, focus. Look at the previous ETP unveiled by Nazib in 2010. We can see that it aims to cover almost everything, almost every sector. And we all know that if you want to cover everything, if you want to focus in everything, you end up achieving nothing. And to a certain extent, the ETP was aimed to diversify our national income from manufacturing sector to the service sector. Compared to the ETP that aims to cover everything, the theme of NIMP is re-industrialization. So we are going back to the manufacturing. It is clearly stated on NIMP website that the macroeconomic targets for manufacturing sectors are as below. Now pay attention here. You can see that the targeted growth for employment is only 20%. Compared to GDP growth 60% and the median salary growth of 128%. It means that our targeted growth is not coming from getting more contracts, but to get more quality works that are higher up in the value chain and to improve our efficiency through technology. I think this is a smart move or even a necessary one. We are better off focusing on manufacturing and exports. And we can't rely on oil and gas and plantation forever, because the world is now and is going to be more concerned about sustainability. Now, how does it differ from the IMP 3.0 unveiled by Badawi in 2006? Badawi IMP 3.0 focused on a few industries in the manufacturing sector, but it is vertically focused. What does it mean? It means that when the budget came, it went into each industry individually. Compared to the INP tree, the NIMP aims to transform the whole manufacturing sector or even beyond the manufacturing sector. What does it mean? We can see NIMP approach is step by step, mission by mission. Because the current government knows that if we want to make it work, we need to allocate our limited resources to just a few industries, and then hopefully from this industry, it will slowly integrate into other value chain and benefit all the other sectors. The NIMP involved about 95 billion ringgit Malaysia over the 7 years, and 9% of which is earmarked under the development expenditure. We will see the potential tax benefit tax release in the upcoming budget 2024 to be tabled on 13th of October. Now the idea of reindustrialization is good, but idea is also cheap. Look around, almost none of the market leaders in any industry is the one who came up with the idea. That leads to my second point, execution. This is an obvious one, because now we have a different administration. You may think this is political bias, maybe it is, but it is also true that NIMP is the comprehensive blueprint with pragmatic plans accompanied by proper governance. There's even a website for you. I have already put the link to the website below. You can see from the website that the approach is mission-based. Do I think the current administration is able to achieve all the missions here? Of course not, because plans can never keep up with changes. But look at the very first two missions, to create global IC developer, which is the chips developer that I mentioned earlier, and to attract new wafer fabrication, which is the chips fabricator that I mentioned earlier. These two alone are going to benefit E&E. You can also see how committed the current administration is by setting the time frame to 7 years, compared to ETP 10 years, INP 20 years, and Wawasan 2020 30 years. The longer you set it, the less likely you are going to be held responsible for it. The third reason, trade diversion, to me this is the main one. China has been known as the factory of the world for a long period of time. Previously, we couldn't compete with China, not with price, not with technology. But thanks to the US-China trade war, which results in trade diversion, it has become an opportunity for countries like Malaysia. More and more multinational corporations are looking to expand their global presence and develop their operation elsewhere. Malaysia is one of those targeted destinations. This is exactly what we need. We need them to bring us the technology so that we can eventually move up the value chain. Look at the chart here, the grey color bar. You can see that Malaysia has been benefiting from the global supply chain diversification since the US-China trade war in 2018. And looking at the FDI, most of them went to the E&E sector, and here are the sources of the fund. Through our research channel check, we found out that the following MNC emerges in Malaysia. Now with a push from the government, I believe that the sector is going to benefit more. Here's the key takeaway. The prospect of Malaysian tech sector is promising. The two most common arguments I see whenever talking about investing in Malaysian tech sectors are, first, isn't it the E&E sector is still in the down cycle? Shouldn't we wait for the sector to recover first? The answer to that, yes, the E&E sector is still in its down cycle. While some suggest there are already signs of recovery, I'm not counting on that, because the tech sector is particularly difficult to predict. What I know is that the E&E sector is a cyclical sector, and investing in a cyclical sector, you want to do it during the down cycle, not the other way around, as long as you have the holding power. If you want to wait until everything is cleared, then it is usually too late. Second argument is that the sector is not cheap at all. I kind of agree to that. If you look at the sector PE ratio as an absolute figure, it is 36 times, which is quite high. But when you compare it to its 5-year PE band, it is actually trading very close to its mean, and this is despite the increasing profit margin, and also the bright prospect that we have just mentioned here. So it depends on how you want to do your valuation, whether in relative to the historical mean or as an absolute figure itself. Finally, as a reminder, unlike some manufacturing industry like the globe for example, the E&E sector is not generic. So it means that two companies under the same EMS category can be doing a very different work. So if you want to invest in the Malaysian tech companies, you want to be very selective. I don't go into details here, but if you want to ask more, you can always click the link to the Google form below. As a general tip, we think that the EMS players are going to be benefiting more than the semiconductor players. That is all for the market highlights of September 2023. As usual, if you like this video, do the usual like, share, subscribe. Until next time.